Hello, my name is Verrick Faust, and this is the second episode of my STEM journey to working a professional dream job. Okay, so I did want to just touch on a few things here. So right now, this is my second one. I wanted to go over my high school time period. Um, Last time we went over my middle school time period. I do want people to again respond back to me, send me anything that you have question wise. I'll try to respond back in comments or anything like that. um, I definitely want to have as much interaction with people who have questions about anything, because at the end of the day, my goal for all of these videos is to communicate to you guys the best way to kind of manage through the school system, and how you can do that, and then how you can get a job at the end of that. So whether you're planning on just going to high school and then moving into the workforce, or going to college and then getting into a job, or furthering your education after college, I really want to help make that the best and easiest process for you guys, and then help make those decisions easier for you. Because I don't make these decisions for you. You guys make the decisions. So I wanted to be able to help you and give you a couple guiding tips, let you hear my experiences, so then it helps inform your experiences, and helps guide you on the way. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help, because that's what I'm here for. I want to help you guys as much as possible. I do apologize for looking in my eye there. As much as possible. So I just want to make sure that everyone's happy about that. Parents too, I want to hear from you guys as well. My plan is to just help everyone as much as possible. That's more or less my goal. I do give talks a lot to students, to college students, high school students, middle schoolers, even elementary students. So I do think it's very important that I try to give a bit of a track that people can follow, and I think that's my plan here. So in case I'm not able to give a talk to you guys, this is a way for me to create a virtual one for you that at least gives you a good idea of what you can do. And then, of course, follow it up with a comment, or reach out to me either way, and I'd be happy to do those types of things. So in this video specifically, I am going to be talking about when I was going through high school. Now, one other small thing, when I go through these things, some of you might be already in high school when you're watching the middle school video, and you might be like, "Oh, I haven't done these things. Should I be doing them?" The answer is very simply, you can. You don't have to. You can, though. I don't think these are really something that are set in stone. Oh, you can only do this in middle school. Oh, you can only do this in high school. I'm simply just telling you what I did when I was in these time periods. I think you can easily do the things I did in middle school and high school. So if you are in high school right now and you watch the middle school video, definitely go through and do those. Even if you're in college, honestly, this happens all the time. My mom went to school as an English major and turned out to be a teacher. So for I think, as many professionals will tell you, they rarely ever go into their profession knowing what they want to do until they come out of school, and sometimes not even then. So really, I would recommend just going through, and you can ask these videos as you will. I simply watched, I just created these so then people have an idea of how I was thinking in the process as a middle schooler, as a kid. I was not always right, and this is where I would have changed my thought process. This is where I would have made a change at. Maybe this is what I would do differently. As an adult, looking back at it with Vision 2020. But this is where I would try to, ask you guys to take a look at it from that perspective. But it also helps me just keeping everything in line from a timestamp format. But yeah, definitely feel free to look at it and be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll do that now instead of, as a middle schooler, because I'm no longer a middle schooler. So I definitely recommend doing either of those. So with that, I will carry on. This one could take a little bit longer. My high school year was actually very busy. I was always hectic in high school, and that's something I would probably start off by saying, is that high school for me was very hectic because I wanted it to. In my opinion, high school is a very important period that kind of sets the tone. How I would say it. For me, it really helped set the tone of what my college experience would be, what my job would be, and how that everything kind of works together. And so with that, we'll get started here. So I started off thinking I wanted to do engineering, which I know kind of interesting considering where I'm at right now, working in an IT industry specifically. But I thought I wanted to do engineering, so I took a lot of IT. I took a lot of engineering classes specifically. I'm pretty much racked my entire list full of engineering classes. I never had a free period. I took only engineering classes when I had any free periods available, and then I just took all my gen eds and everything else that was necessary. Um, and it was actually a really great time. I really enjoyed school. I was one of those weird kids that was like, oh yeah, fun, school. I get to learn stuff. So I would just go through the day learning more and more about the engineering side of things. We did electronics. We did uh, solar panels, reusable energy, a whole bunch of these other things that were just really interesting. And I mean, the longer I did it, I really did enjoy engineering. I mean, the engineering program we had was pretty decent overall. It was a little old, and a little outdated, but it was still interesting to me. I found engineering to be an interesting um, concept. And one of the more bigger things that I was interested in was being able to do like a job shadow. One of the first things I did when I started my high school career was looking for a job shadow. I went into our office. It was, I think, uh, it would have probably been the counseling office, and I asked them if they had any job shadows. They had some for like nursing. So there was some for like some STEM things. It was kind of like a job shadowish type thing, but they didn't really have anything for engineering. But they did have a secondary program called TechWorks, and through TechWorks you could get a job shadow potentially. It's more or less set up through them instead of the school. So I was kind of disappointed by that because I didn't know anything about TechWorks. I didn't have anything set up, so I worked on getting that set up, and I was able to talk to our TechWorks person, who was Kelly Cooper at the time, and she helped set up these meetings with businesses, and I was able to start getting an understanding of how these would work. She would come up once every month. I'm not sure the exact schedule, to be honest. And she would ask me how things were going, what type of classes I had available to me, what my trajectory would be when I wanted to get to another engineering class, and what classes I should take to get there. And it was really helpful. I was actually very happy to get these types of classes. Considering middle school, I didn't have this type of attention, I guess, where people were able to answer these questions of, hey, if I want to do this and I want to do this, how do I get there? They never asked me these questions. I was never able to ask other people these questions. They were kind of just like, do your homework and do good in your homework. I guess that was really the best they gave me in middle school. So in high school, they were like, here's a person who actually talks to colleges and businesses and knows what they want, so talk to her. So that's what I did. I talked to her, and she gave me these options of how I can get a little bit better and get my get these classes that would help me in work related type activities. And then eventually, when I moved up a little bit more, I was able to get like a job shadow of an engineering class, and then I got to go to John Deere again and a few other places. While this was happening, I also did a lot more musicals. I did some speech contests. I did a whole bunch of other, uh, I guess you would say, more speaking type role not jobs, more or less activities. And the reason why is because I think something that's very important is that we get a good foundation of communication skills. In STEM specifically, communication skills are very, very important. Like very important. I think of all things, STEM requires a lot of good communication. If you're not able to communicate effectively, you're going to run into issues with miscommunication, which runs into that issue of where people aren't going to understand what you're saying, or they're not going to be able to understand why this happened, and then they're going to get frustrated, and then it just kind of spirals down into that. And getting good communication skills helps prevent this. And that's why I figured, okay, getting good communication skills, that's got to be a high priority for me. I took speech. I took I did a speech contest. I was an improvist. I did improv with group, improv individual. I did a lot of musicals, a lot of plays. I wanted to feel comfortable talking to people because talking to people is really big when you're looking for a job, when you're applying at colleges, when you're going to a college and you have to give presentations. These types of skills are just so necessary. And to be honest, I would recommend even starting at a younger age than high school. But honestly, I think it was just such a big deal that I was doing all these things. Just making sure I felt comfortable talking in front of an audience, making sure that I wasn't squirmish, I wasn't uncomfortable. These types of things are just very important. So that's why I would recommend doing these types of other activities. I did do a couple sports here and there. I didn't do too many of them though. I sports wise, I'm just not that physically active on that way. I walked a lot. I tried to do a couple of them, but I did do the chess club. I wanted to get a lot more involved with our community, so I did chess club. I did a lot of during the summer. I did a lot of I did some chess classes with a lot of the kids, and then I did some interactions with the elementary schools in chess. So we would have like some of the high schoolers playing against the kids in the middle schoolers, and it was a lot of fun. We had it in one of our school newspapers, which was great. And it's just these types of interactions that I would highly recommend for both students or if your kid, just asking them. Don't force them to do any of this because it won't work out well for you if you do force them doing it. But just suggesting it is a great idea because it just works out better for them if they have these types of tools. So working on your communication skills is just a huge part of it. But back to more of the relations of like taking those classes, working with TechWorks. It was a great part of this idea where they would talk to students that were interested. There wasn't many students that actually took advantage of it. I don't remember the exact number. My guess is 20 when I was there anyway. This number could change. I'm not 100% sure at this point, but when I was there, I think there was only like 20 students because we had a fun little pizza party at the end. And we were able to communicate to her. She would help schedule things with businesses. We got to do VR things during school days, which was really cool. And communicate with businesses is just a huge deal. And this is something I want people to take note of is making a relationship with nearby businesses. This is a huge deal. In high school, you have to make big relationships with your businesses that you're near you. Even if you don't plan on staying by them, making a good relationship with these businesses will help you in the later part because you may not know if you're going to stay there or not. When I live in Dubuque, so a lot of people don't. When I was in high school, a lot of people were like, I can't wait to leave. I want to go out to like Florida, or they would just list out any normal other state or city. And I would typically tell them that I like Dubuque, actually. It's not a bad place. And I would often try to talk to a lot of these businesses to try and create this relationship with them because I think that's very important. You can't really start anything with a business without a relationship. So I started, having good conversations with these businesses. I'd see them multiple times. So they'd be like, hey, your name's Verrick. And I'd always wear a bow tie. So they would always be like, I remember you. I try to be very funny. I try to be a good student, trying to make sure I remember their name, make sure that, these simple like human gestures that I don't think take much to do at this point, but I think just really means a lot to people. Um, these types of things, so just creating these relationships with nearby businesses is just so important. And you don't even have to have your school facilitating this. If you just go to a business on a regular basis, and you just know them. I think one of my friends often went to a food restaurant a lot, and they just knew everyone that worked there. They didn't work there themselves; they just knew everyone that worked there. So they were like, "Oh, I know this person, this person, this person, and I know their names." And then they were able to associate that. I mean, these types of relationships help the business and you get work well together, and that's really what I think is very important. So I did a lot of that when I was going on these trips to these businesses, talking to like Eagle Point Solar is a good example. I went on a trip with them. I got to talk to the owner of that person for a long time. He actually offered me a position later on that day. It was really, really awesome. Like he's a great guy. I think he's under new management currently, but the previous owner, I guess, he was really great guy. The people there were awesome. They would talk about all this amazing stuff. I was so interested. That's the other thing, just making sure that you're constantly interested in what they're teaching you, making sure you're asking follow-up questions. I mean, it's okay to not have questions, but if you do have a question, they're there to answer it. So I would definitely, just, be honest with yourself and ask these questions because they're not going to fault you for having questions. You're a high schooler. You don't know it all. I certainly didn't. So I would definitely recommend, asking these questions. They liked kids that have the interest in learning more about, how solar panels work. That was one of the more interesting ones of like, oh, it was new because during that time, most places I knew didn't have them, and I didn't know how they worked at the time. So they would go through and show us how they worked, show us a video of why they worked, and I asked them, why would I want to go with a solar panel? And there's a big cost to it. What was the difference there? And they would go through it time to time, and they'd give us a folder with all this information. It was really interesting. I mean, I was so impressed that they would go through and they took roughly a full day to do this. They didn't have to do that, but they did. So creating these relationships, I think, is very, very meaningful for them. And it is for me too. So this is something I would highly recommend for both students and even like instructors and people in businesses of schools. Just doing that, it's so meaningful from a student perspective and from a staffing perspective. And then the other thing is colleges, nearby colleges. A lot of times, the TechWorks person that I worked with, Kelly, she would introduce me to colleges a lot. She gave me a list of a couple colleges that were nearby, that she had contacts with, that she said that they have a decent program that would work pretty well with what I'm looking for in terms of engineering. She said that you could start at NICC and then move over to a 4-year degree at Iowa State, or you could go to the University of Iowa, or you could go to UNI. So then she just gave me a few of those people, and then I was able to, at a couple of these meetings that she set up with a mass amount of students. It wasn't just me, it was just a mass amount of students. I was able to talk to these people, specifically the presidents and the the instructors of these classes, and just kind of get a decent understanding of what they teach and how they teach. And that's another important thing I recommend to high school students, is to get an understanding of what college is going to look like. A lot of times when you go from high school to college, it is a bit of an adjustment period, and I think that's something that that colleges typically take in mind when they create their college experience classes. But it's a little bit difficult to remember that there's so many students in a class. That was something that I often ask is, how many students do you have in a class? How much time do you leave for this one student over this other student? Or how much time will I have to talk to you about an issue that I have on this question, or about this specific thing? Because I'm one of those people that when I have a question about something, I want to discuss it with you. And I have no problem discussing it with other people too, like you and like a few other people or a few other students. But it does become a little more difficult when there's 90 students per class. And that was kind of the issue I kept running into in UNI, Iowa State, and University of Iowa. So these type of issues kind of came up from time to time, and they said that they would have they would like to do those types of things, or they have like a student that was there to answer some of these questions that they designated. So sometimes these were understandable questions. Most colleges follow these types of suits. But something that was interesting is that NICC didn't really do that. They actually would say, no, their instructor would answer these questions. There wasn't like a specific other student that would try to do it. There was no try. It was normally they would just do it. It was kind of expected of the instructor to answer these questions or work with you on these. They did have an area where you could go to for some of the more basics like math, or reading or writing. But like if it's something more specific, like computer science or engineering, yeah, we had people, our teachers would just answer these questions. And I think it came down to the number of, like, we only have this many students in our NICC classes, whereas the college levels of 4-year colleges, they have 90 students. So there's a bigger difference in numbers, and that always just got me a little confused. I was like, well, I want more one-on-one time with my instructor so they can show me how I'm supposed to do this and the process. And so that's something just to keep in mind when you're thinking about college, is that process of, when I have an issue, who do I go to? Why do I go to them? And how are they going to help me on that issue? So as a high school student, that's what I was trying to figure out. What college is going to help me do the best that I can do? So I was trying to get a good understanding of all these colleges, get a good understanding of relationships with these instructors from all the different colleges that were near me. UD was a good example as well. UD is a decent cybersecurity one. Unfortunately, our school didn't have much of an emphasis on cybersecurity at the time. It was like in the 2018 era, it wasn't that big of a deal. For whatever reason in our school, I mean, I think it was, but we didn't have any classes on it. Our program wasn't that extensive in that area. And in terms of engineering, they didn't have too many classes available to me at that time. and it was just more or less Iowa State was probably the best option for engineering, so that was kind of where I was leaning towards. Um, and then as I was going through as a sophomore, after I was going through that time period, I realized that I didn't really want to do engineering. Um, I really fell in love with the concept of computers, working on computers. I worked on building computers. I worked with fixing a lot of them for the school, working with a lot of instructors on correcting issues that they ran into with projectors, so AV equipment specifically. And I was asked by I don't know specifically who, I think it was the tech coach at my school to join in on a group of students during the summer to come up with a structure for a student-run help desk at our school. So this was kind of like a nice first step of kind of creating a curriculum for computer science area, which was really great because they only had computer science, AP computer science as a class, and that was probably the closest you were going to get to like a very well-structured computer science course. So they were trying to create a help desk for students, which I was very happy about, and I was 100% on board for. So me and a few other students got in together. We went to the forum at my school district, and we got to talk to a whole bunch of the tech coaches and the administration of a few of the administrations of the tech area. And we worked with them on creating a bit of a guidelines of how they wanted to build the class, how many students they should have in the class. And eventually what I think they came out to is that you can have 2 to 3 people in the class. They're going to run around and help instructors when they need help, collect laptops, do minor work on the laptops. If it requires more extensive work, give them to the tech, and then create tickets. And these things really was a big game changer for me and really helped me decide that I wanted to go into this type of a format of work. Because when I took this class, I realized that I really enjoy working with people. I really enjoy working on fixing issues, technical issues, and I also kind of enjoy servers a lot. So I like working with the servers and stuff. We were able to tour the forum at the time. They had a new server installation, from what I remember, and I really found them interesting. I never got to see a server before until this point, or at least I never got to go inside and like really look at them to that extent. So I was really fascinated by them and how they functioned, and there was just so many things about them that I was so interested in. And then as I was going through this, I was able to learn more and more about the concepts of it. And I was looking into what is a help desk, because I wanted to get some prep work done ahead of time. And when I found out what a help desk was, I just completely agreed and wanted to work as hard as I can to make sure this went through for our school. Because they were going to get laptops to the freshmen and then the sophomore, and then move on every year for each student line that comes in every year. And I wanted to make sure that that we could get this done for our students, because as a student who wants this type of experience, it helps so much for me after high school that I have this experience. So when that was available, I was very excited. So I was able to get into that program. They were able to create it. We were able to give them some assistance on what we felt we should have in it. We were able to work on computers for students, teachers, AV equipment. We took computers when they ran into issues, when students had issues. We helped on a couple of installations. It was a lot of fun. We also got to work on an HP certification, which was amazing. They would give you like a 2-year certification from HP because all of our laptops were HP. This type of program was really amazing and definitely a step in the right direction for our school district. And I was very excited about it because it really helped push me into the computer landscape. I was able to help with all these things. Our tech coach was the instructor for this class. So she would ask students, hey, I have this event going on. Does anyone want to stay after school to work with me on this event? Or I have this event during school. Who wants to work on this event during school, or something like that? And I would be happy to do any of them, is what I told her. I told her every day, if you have anything you need done, you please let me know. I'd be happy to work on these issues, because this is something I'm very interested in doing. And when I did get into my next meeting with my tech coach, well, not my tech coach, the TechWorks coach. I told her that I recently learned that I really like computers. I really like this, and I wanted to go into something into this format. And she said, I kind of figured you did. She told me that she was kind of like, you said you liked engineering, but it was kind of iffy. So I thought, yeah, I already have this whole thing ready for you. I thought you might wanted to go into this after seeing your experience with this. Here, I have this lined up for you. She sent me over to Clark University, and I was able to go over and do a job shadow there. They would show me a whole bunch of more interesting stuff. I was so fascinated. They showed me their servers, their phones set up. I was able to see how they used virtualization, which as a kid, I had no idea what that was at that time. So I was so fascinated by that. Having multiple computers on one computer did not seem possible to me until they mentioned it. And then I asked them on how'd you get to this point? What's your moving forward? And then they mentioned system administration degree, and that's kind of what they're going for. And I asked them how they plan on doing it and what their pathways were, and they said that they well, actually, we're going to school there at the time. And I thought that was pretty clever. Go to a school and then work for the school. That's clever. Um, yeah, I essentially worked. I was able to work with them there. They had a couple of people come in with their own laptop. They would work on diagnosing the laptop, troubleshooting it, tearing it apart, working on it, and then putting it back together and fixing it and returning it. One of them used to work at Best Buy, I believe, and he told me that it's very similar, but it's even more in depth because they work with a lot more of the background things. So like the servers being a good example is what he said. The phone system being a good example, and Active Directory being a good example. So all these things that they were showing me that I never knew about, and there was no classes really about, and these were all terms I was able to go, okay, I can write this down. I can write this down. I'll go Google this tomorrow. I'll go Google this tomorrow. I'll Google this tomorrow. Like all these things that I had no idea about, and that I was very excited to learn about. So that type of thing was really huge. And this is where job shadows, I mean, a lot of times people say, I, you don't have to do a ton of them, but doing some of them really helps. And because I had two things in mind, I wanted to make sure I did a lot of them to get a good idea of what I wanted to do. So that job shadow made a big difference for me. And then after that job shadow, that was in that was in the beginning of my junior year. Which is a really important thing because this is an entire time period where you have about 2 years left to make sure you have everything set up for your college, make sure you have a good amount of information. I made sure I had everything set up now, relined up for the computer classes. Now, the one thing that was a little frustrating is we didn't really have computer classes. Again, as I mentioned before, we only had computer science. So the curriculum was computer science, and that required that I took Algebra 2. So I had to have Algebra 2 completed before I could take computer science, which if anyone's watching and has taken computer science, it's not, or an AP computer science class, Algebra 2 is probably not necessary, but it was like the best format they had because the math teacher was the one who taught it. And they've definitely reassessed a lot of this already at this point. This is just during my time period as a student. That's how it worked. So understandably, I made sure I had all my prerequisites set up. I wanted to make sure that I was guaranteed to take this class, and I was so happy I was able to. I was able to take this class as a junior, and I had the teacher that taught it did a great job. She was a brilliant teacher. There was two teachers that taught it. She helped. It was essentially a class about Java, so you would learn about Java, the concept of Java, and then you would take an AP test at the end of the year. And then you would be able to maybe use that to get you through college. AP classes were kind of awkward in the sense that they don't always transfer well in schools, just depending on what school you're going to. But more importantly, I wanted the education portion. That was what I cared the most about. And she did a great job teaching that to me. She would help us create programs, run the program, and then she'd ask, okay, this is what I want, build it. And we would have to build it. And it was very interesting. And then one of our projects, or I think it was the midterm project, I think, is we had to create a game and then we had to build it. So I was completely excited about this. And I created like a Jarvis-esque program. So you could ask questions. It would answer back with these statements. And I spent like hours upon hours building this program, and asking for assistance on a few things that were kind of out of my purview at the time, because I wanted it to be so interesting and so complex. I wanted it to be very interesting. And one of the things that was just really interesting about programming is that you can build whatever you want to build. And she really instilled that on me of like, you can do whatever you want to do in programming. And she was always happy to help. And I would often see her during her lunch hour or during her free period. So I do feel bad that I might have taken up some of her time. But she was always happy to help, and I do appreciate that. And something I do need to take a moment here and say is that teachers often do care a lot about their students. And if you're in a position where you need assistance on something, I would highly recommend that you reach out to your teachers about that. I bet they'd be happy to work with you on that. If you have a question about getting a getting a job shadow, getting that, I bet a teacher would be happy to look into that for you. Of course, if they're unable to, you have to understand that they're just probably just not able to do it. That's the simple fact of it. But if they are able to, that's great. I think this teacher in specific that I'm thinking of is an amazing teacher, and she's done so much for me during my time period. She helped me learn more about Java. She helped push me more into that tech realm, which is where I wanted to be at, where I have a lot of fun in. I didn't go in specifically programming, but I do think programming is an amazing area, and I definitely think that she was a great teacher at making it a lot more enjoyable for people. And I was definitely heavily considering going into programming because of her. So I think these types of things are very important, and she definitely did a great job. Unfortunately, again, though, this was the only class that was specifically computer sciences. So other than the help desk, that was the closest I was able to get from a class perspective. That being said, I don't believe that's a good enough reason to not go forward into it. I often want to make that point that just because the school doesn't have as many opportunities, that you shouldn't be making up your own opportunities. During this time period, we did create a robotics club. We had an FTC team, which is a First Tech Robotic. So we did build that. That helped give us some somewhat programming-esque learning, building robots, understanding more relations, understanding. It was a really great experience. So we had that team going on. That started roughly my freshman, sophomore year, and then we were continuing it my junior year. So doing that really helped, giving a little bit more perspective, better with the relations of communications. I helped manage a lot of the communications and coding aspect. While they were building the robot, I assisted on a few of those other things. This team aspect, also team building, very important. I would recommend that if you haven't done anything teamwork related, that you join a club, that you do something that is team related. Clubs and things like that help give these team building aspects, and they're very important to anyone in any business. If you don't have the ability to work as a team, you're going to have a lot of issues in a work setting. So I would highly recommend doing it. It helps so much if you can work as a team. So getting these skills built is very important. So I was working in robotics, and then I was also doing a musical at that time period. So I was able to do a whole bunch of other things while I was programming, and then I would build that program, and then I'd have my friends test out the program I made. I made that Jarvis, and then I added in a couple other things like a Star Wars test that would ask them Star Wars questions, and then it would give them, hey, you got it right, oh, you got it wrong, and then it would give them a score on how well they did. It was so much fun. I had so many Star Wars friends that were in the musical, so they were taking it and having a good joy of it. I think even our director took it because she was a huge Star Wars fan as well. And it was such a great moment trying to add that coding aspect of it. So it's these types of things that really help out. One other thing I wanted to point out is a lot of the club that I was mentioning, the robotics club, and me building these programs, a lot of this was fueled by a lot of the friends I had. A lot of my friends, not all of them were tech savvy, but a lot of them were just interested. They're like, what are you building? Asking me questions about it, and I got to explain it through, which really helped me understand what I was doing as well. Sometimes in coding, it's hard to explain what you're doing. because it's sometimes easier to not know and do, and then do and know. So I would then do it, and then I would explain to this person, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it, and this is how it works. And then this would help me get a better understanding of how it worked. And it was so amazing when I was able to do that. Of course, I had also friends that were older than me at that time that helped me when I had questions. I had a friend who was a senior. He worked with me on the help desk. He would help work with me on graphics cards. I didn't have a good understanding of how they functioned at the time. I wasn't much of a gamer at the time, so he would show me how they worked and why they were so much more important in video game situations, and why the chip needs to be this way, or the motherboards, the concepts of building computers. He would go into more deeper detail on that. He helped me build a computer. He was a really great friend to me for a long time, and still is to this day. He helps me go through these types of mental loops with computers, and he goes through and checks these types of boxes for me when I'm trying to go through of, oh, did I miss this one? Or like he keeps track of all the Ryzens and all the Intel stuff. So having friends really helps makes this process even easier. And I highly recommend finding somebody who has a similar interest to you, or checking in with somebody who doesn't, so then you can help explain to them how it works, so then you can help yourself understand how it works a little bit better. Both of these options really helped me, and I think it'll really help you guys as well, because it really does make a big difference in the end. And then, so this will probably bring us around my senior year. Senior year was actually quite hectic as well, probably just as much as hectic as it was the last 3 years. My senior year, I did still do a musical, because I believe very firmly that you have to do, got to get that speech, make sure you can talk very fluently in front of people. But more importantly, I also we did our FRC team that year. That's when we created and started our first season with that. And it was a really big season for us. We not only went to state, but we actually went pretty far in state, and I was very happy about it. And that was a pretty big deal for us and for our school. We were able to get that far. And that took a lot of hard work from not just me, but from a lot of people on our team. I was not just, I want to make sure I make that clear. I'm not a team of one, I'm a team of many. We had a lot of great coaches that helped on this. Not have been possible without them. We did a lot of communication with judges. We had to do a lot of work with the team to make sure everyone knew what was going on, make sure everyone felt comfortable with what was going on, make sure that we were able to make a great conversation with the judges so they knew that everyone knew what we were going to do. And the best thing about FIRST and the First Robotics Challenge, First Tech Challenge, is that it's all about teamwork and gratitude, and just making sure that everyone's kind of on the same page. We work a lot in our community. We work a lot with getting to know a lot of the people out there with businesses, because we really couldn't do with what we want to do without the businesses that we work with. And they helped us get to where we were going to get. And that's, again, comes back to that making relationships with nearby businesses, making relationships with nearby colleges. It's just really important. And that's why I often tell people, I would highly recommend going into the first robotics challenges or the first tech challenges. Those really give you the concrete skills you need to further yourself. So I would highly recommend doing those. Just overall, those give you so much skills. I was able to, I was one of the people that talked to the judges. I talked to one of our governors, Kim Reynolds. So I was able to talk to a lot of these people about our robot and how they worked. I did not work on every aspect of the robot because that would be impossible for me to do. But I was able to talk to the people that did work on them. They were able to let me know how that worked, and I was able to go through and try to convey exactly what they were telling me, because I had the tech background and tech understanding of how they were communicating to me and how it worked. And it was a great year for our robotics team that year. And then, of course, like I said, we have the musical, which is great for that communication skills. Then also later down that line, with my TechWorks person that I worked with, she set up a time for me to talk to one of the people at Grand River Medical Group, where I was able to start an internship at. I was going to go over there to do just a job shadow, and I met them before the job shadow was actually going to take place, and they were so interested with what I was saying. A few other students were also there, and their point of views when we were at a meeting. And he came by and offered to do a student internship for one of the students there. So I, of course, completely surprised. I was very happy to do an interview because mock interviews are on my list of things that we need to do. And I do want to take a moment to tell students that as a high schooler, a mock interview is very important. I think most high schools offer doing a mock interview. Like if you go into your counselor, they'll probably be happy to set one up for you. But I think it's very important that you do those before you leave high school. Even colleges will do it, for sure. I know colleges should, I think all of them, I'm pretty sure all of them have mock interviews, but I think high school should definitely give that as an option as well, because not everyone goes to college. So if you're not going to college, giving them this opportunity to do a mock interview is very important. So from a high school standpoint, I was very excited to do an interview with a tech director, or specifically an IT director at a major medical institute. So I wanted to do one of these so badly. Like whether or not I even got it, I was just excited to do one in general. Of course, I wanted to get it, but I wanted to make sure I did it properly, and I wanted to make sure I did the best I could do. And I was hoping that I'd get feedback, at least if I didn't get it. And I was so excited to do this type of thing. So I went to Grand River Medical Group, and the person that did my interview, he's the IT, he used to be the IT director at Grand River Medical Group. I don't believe he works there anymore. But he was a great guy. I sat down, I talked to him. And one of the things that he mentioned towards the end of our interview is that he said, you know, you give so much personal communications to me. Like you talk about things in a nice way. You're not afraid to laugh. You're not afraid to have an actual human interaction, is how he put it. And I think that's very important. And I think, you know, what he said is very well spoken. And I think this is something that some people may be afraid to point out, but I don't know everything. So I wanted to make sure I voiced what he said to me on my interview, that he, you know, making sure that you're able to be sincere, making sure you're able to be human during an interview is very important. So to those people that are watching, I do highly recommend, you know, doing mock interviews, talking to people, asking adults in different professions, having them do a mock interview, or asking them, you know, when you do an interview, what do you do? Do you do X, Y, and Z? Or, you know, what is the difference for you? Or often what I do is I'll talk to some IT directors and ask, you know, what's the difference for you between number A and number B when they do when they do an interview, like these types of questions. And I normally they're like, well, it kind of depends. Sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's how much experience they have, whether or not they have a degree, maybe, or maybe it's just the fact that they weren't that communicative. I guess maybe that's why. So these are like the questions that I normally like asking people in these types of positions, because a lot of times we'll get a lot of different answers. It really isn't like oh, you just do this, because it's not that simple. People are far too more complicated for it to be that simple. So I think it's really interesting that we've gotten to that point where we were able to just sit down and have a great conversation. I mean, I was wearing a blazer, I was wearing black shoes, black pants, I was trying to look pristine. I had my notes on a paper plate, and I was reading them in the bathroom because I was like 30 minutes early at the time. I'll be honest, I was just very nervous because I don't know. It was my first interview with like a high profile person. Because I did know him a little bit, just from seeing him. And so did the other students because they've seen him at the meetings as well. And I just didn't want to mess up in front of him. But when it came down to the meeting, when we did our interview, it was really just a great conversation of, you know, why do you want to do help desk? This is why I really enjoy talking to people. I want to solve problems. I'm great at de-escalating issues. I don't want to cause issues either, so I want to make sure that those issues are fixed effectively. You know, these types of things are just very important to me. So, you know, it turned out to just be a great conversation. He would offer me a couple things that weren't even like I would say interview questions. He would say, you know, one of the things that I'm aiming for when I get older is this, and this. And then I was like, oh, that's really interesting. You know, we would get into a great conversation. And I think, you know, from a high school perspective, which is where I was at that time, I just had such a great time talking to him where I could probably, I hope he felt the same way, that we could probably have just sat there talking forever about different types of things and feel perfectly comfortable about it. And I think that's why he decided to go with me. He's like, because that's one of the things he said when he called me back and told me that I was hired on. And when I asked him, why did you hire me? Or what was the reasoning? He told me that he liked that I was open about everything, that I was happy to fix things, and that he thought that I'd be a great worker. And then later on, I think it was like I worked for him for about 2.5 years. Later on, he told me that he was one of the greatest things that he was able to do was able to hire a student intern, because student interns at a high school level is just very unlikely at the time. I was looking for an internship as a high schooler. To be fair, I was very like, I wanted to look for internships. That very rarely will you ever find a high school internship, because it's just not something they did at the time, which luckily is changing now. But I was just very, very excited to do it. And I was so happy that they gave me the opportunity to. But yeah, it was such a great experience for me to do that. I was able to work in my schedule. I did take 2 hours off for schooling, so I was able to take like two. I only took a couple classes each year, so I didn't take a full schedule that year as a senior. Mostly because I didn't have many computer classes anyway, and the things I'd be learning on the job would be far more important than what I could be learning at school, unfortunately. Um, at the internship, I was learning about Active Directory. I was learning about virtualization. I was learning about server management, taking calls with doctors, nurses. Like, I mean, it was very intense, and it was a great learning experience. And I really cannot tell you how important that was for me, and how big of a jumpstart that was from where I was. These things that I was learning, there was a time period in college I hadn't even learned them. So I think it was a huge deal to get that ahead of time. So I think it was probably after I missed 2 periods, I think, 2 or 3 periods. And I was able to work it out with our school to make this happen. I was very excited about it. But this is something that they just didn't have previously. Like, this was not a thing they had set up, or an option set up. I do think they do now, possibly, but they didn't have it when I was in high school. So I was so thankful and so happy to be a part of such a unique situation and experience. And I would highly recommend, if you're in high school or college, that you look for an internship in that type of a position that you wanted to be in. I think the title they gave me was a CIS student intern. To be honest, titles in the IT industry don't quite mean much. They're kind of difficult to understand what my titling is and everything, because really what I did is I did help desk / some server management on occasion. So it was really great. And I really recommend that students look for those type of opportunities and leap forward towards them when available, because it's very important that you do that. And I'd be happy to be a reference point, or to let you know if I ever hear any of those. I try to tell students if there is anything available that way. I went to a couple of the college day experiences, and they had some businesses that said they would be taking high school students as an option. So I think it's very important that we make sure that they're aware of that, and that college students are also aware of that, because college students should also have an opportunity of working in these positions, to make it a little bit more easier for them. But during my high school career as a senior, that's what I was doing for a good portion of it. I was working at Grand River Medical Group as a student intern, and that really was a huge impact on my education, and it made a big splash for me, and it was really, really big for me. I was really happy. I was able to learn so much more than I was able to on my own. The other nice thing is that the people that worked there were willing to take time out of their day to help teach me some things. So like after work, one of the coworkers that I had went through and just put it on a board and explain to me, this is how a virtual machine works. This is why it works this way. There were other admins that, they would just write it down on a board, or they'd be like, here, go to this, this, and this, and this. This will show you what you're wanting to know. Because, they're busy. I don't want to take up their time, of course. Or they would do something and then they would explain, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. And that type of stuff is just so important from a high school perspective. In terms of like, if you aren't able to get one of those from a high school perspective, they do now finally have websites and stuff that you can definitely get to that will show you people walking through these types of steps. I do have them listed on my website, so you could go there to get them. But a lot of these people go through because they've worked in the workforce, they've done it. They go through, and these are things that you can do at home that'll help teach you these things. That was one of the things that they often taught me is build a home lab. Home labs are like one of the best things you can do. If you can't get an internship, a home lab is nearly the same. If you can get a Windows server, even if it's not a full Windows server, if you can just use it for 90 days, building up Active Directory and all that is going to help you so much. It's a huge difference. So I would highly recommend building a home lab. You can build home labs on even like the most basic computers these days, desktops that are a little older. You can turn your old PCs into servers. I would highly recommend that. You can talk to teachers about opportunities like this, and they can typically help you. I was able to get this somewhat through the school, so I would definitely reach out to your schools. And if these aren't available at your schools, I would recommend talking to your schools. These weren't really available all at my schools. There were some of them that weren't. The robotics team was not available at our school, so me and a group of friends and a couple instructors worked together on creating the first tech challenge, and then we worked together on creating the first robotic team. So we worked together on building these infrastructure teams. I think to this day they have now like 4 or 5 teams in the school district now. So building these teams now will help people in the future, and that's the other big deal. I really want to help people in these fields. Now to this day in high school and K through 12, they have a lot more STEM focused classes. They have a computer science curriculum rather, and it's way more advanced. They have way more classes now for that. I'm so excited with what they've gone with it at this point for my school district. Of course, that's not everyone's school district, so I wanted to make sure that other people that don't have that school district could maybe use this formula and use it for that school district, or reach out to people in a higher position of power to get that for their school district, or reach out to me and I'd be happy to talk to them, or reach out to them and see if there's anything I can do to help make that a possibility. I think it's very important that all kids, all students have the opportunity to learn as much as they can in school and outside of school, because I think that's also important. It does also fall upon us, the student, to learn outside of school, which is what I also did a lot. So I hope I was able to give you some more information. I hope you were able to gain something out of this. Definitely feel free to leave a comment or let me know if there's anything that you have questions about. I wanted to make sure I reached out, give a bit of a go through a little bit of the stuff that I went through about the last episode. I'll probably do the same for this one. If I missed anything, definitely feel free to let me know. I'd be happy to reach out to anyone who has any questions or anything like that. Anyone that I mentioned in here may no longer be in their current positions. Most of this is, again, a lot of the people in this video helped me get to where I'm at. I need to preface that people that help other people are really the real heroes here. I'm simply just voicing what they've done to help me get to where I'm at. I would not be here without all the people that helped me. And it's now my job to help people that need to get to my position. So I think it's very important that other people do that as well. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Bye.